we'll start off, because we switched the order a bit, with Jaap-Henk Hoepman. He's online due to some circumstances, unexpected. So that's why we improvised and he's on screen. He's from Karlstad University, Radboud University, no longer University of Groningen recently. But he'll start with a presentation about EIDs to and how to not regulate structures. So quite some critical notes in this session. So looking forward to it and some nice discussion. So first I give the floor to Jaap-Henk. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Arnold, for the introduction, and my apologies for not being able to be there in person, which I would have preferred, but I'm happy that we managed to find a solution like this. I will talk a little bit about the proposal for an update to the EIDs regulation, the digital identity regulation, and as a meta message, I will talk about how not to regulate privacy in the Netherlands, in Europe, or in the world. So, as an introduction, so what is EIDs? What was EIDs? Because it already exists for quite some time. It's a regulation that covers electronic identities and trust services. And it has been in use for quite some time, has been mandated for quite some time, but it turns out that it's not very successful. The idea was that it would support cross-border use of national EID systems like we have in the Netherlands, DigiD, but that really didn't work out the way it was intended. And second of all, the European Commission saw a threat of wallet providers, and especially a threat of Apple and Google wallets appearing, which already in the United States, for instance, Apple can issue or can hold, the wallet of Apple can hold a driver's license. And this is really, I think, an important reason why we should have an update to the EIDs, because we really want to be able, as Europe, to issue and manage our own wallets and our own digital identities, and we should not really depend on the wallets provided by Apple or Google. So what is new in the version 2.0 of the EIDs? This is the concept of a European digital identity wallet, which is supposed to be an app on a smartphone, although there are alternative architectures proposed. They are to be issued by member states according to a common standard, the so-called architecture reference framework. That one is actually still under discussion, whereas the regulation itself has already been approved by Parliament. And the idea is to have attributes, certificates, and documents in this wallet, and essentially it becomes a personal data store. And I will talk only, the EIDs is broad, it covers lots of stuff, but I will only talk about the identity wallet here. So what is this attribute attestation thing that the wallet is based on? This is something that we in Nijmegen and others in many European projects and all across the world have been working on for, I think, already 20 years. This is the idea that you can issue anonymous attribute credentials to people that express a certain property about that person. And the general structure of such attribute attestations is as depicted in this slide, where an issuer claims that a person has a certain value for a certain attribute. So, for instance, the Dutch government can claim that I have the Dutch nationality, and this is probably makes sense because the Dutch government actually has something to say about nationality. You could also have a claim that says that the bank claims that I have a good credit rating. Well, that depends a bit whether you should believe that, depending on whether I have a bank account and whether actually my balance on that bank account is green and not red. And of course, there's weird claims like the land registrar claiming that I would have a PhD in law. Now, I could have a PhD in law. I actually don't, but it's actually not up to the land register to say something about it. In other words, the veracity of a claim depends on the issuer making the claim, and whether you should believe the claim depends on whether you trust the issuer to say something about these attribute values. The thing is that in technological terms, the attestation is signed by the issuer, so it cannot be changed after the fact. And the beauty is that it can be done in a way where actually the identity of the bearer of this attestation does not have to be revealed. And that works roughly like this. So you have a credential wallet, you have a user, and the user can request credentials that say something about his properties in the credential, for instance, age or name or nationality, and then later you can use them by showing them to a service that requires these attributes before giving access. For instance, if you want to access age-restricted material, you have to make sure that the person accessing the website is of a certain age, and you can use a credential to prove this in such a way that this is unlinkable to an identity. So why use attribute attestations? I already told you a little bit about this. The reason is that you can do selective disclosure, so you can reveal only the required attributes to the service provider. There's a sense of self-sovereignty, so you can decide what attestations to get and from whom, depending a bit on the kind of attestations that you want. Most importantly, you can decouple the getting and the using of an attribute, the so-called issuer unlinkability. That means that the issuer cannot learn when and where you use attributes, and that's a real big departure from the social logins that we used to when you sign in at Spotify with your Google account or your Facebook account. And you can also decouple the successive uses of an attribute, so multi-show unlinkability. So in essence, I can go to an online casino and gamble, and I can prove every time that I'm over 18. And even if I visit the casino 100 times a day, the casino would not be able to tell that it's really me or one person accessing the casino. So this gives you good privacy guarantees, whereas the credential itself, the signature, also offers good security guarantees. Great. Now, that in principle means that the European identity wallet is a good approach to doing a digital identity. Unfortunately, the attribute attestations in EIDAS are lame, essentially because it's a set of salted hashes, which means that you can do selective disclosure, so you can hide the attribute values and only reveal the hashes, or reveal the attribute values and you don't need to show the hashes. And still, the overall hash over all these values can be computed and can be verified and compared to the credential, but it's still linkable. We have selective disclosure, but because this issuer knows the signature and the signature is revealed to the relying party, it's never changed, it's always the same signature, then because relying parties can collude with issuers, the users can get profiled. And if I use the same credential several times, this credential can again be linked because the signature is always the same, and therefore we don't have multi-use unlinkability. Now, the proposed solution to this, because this has been realized when thinking about this architecture, is to actually issue a batch of credentials or a batch of attestations with different salts, so the signatures are different. And then you can use them once and then throw them away. And then at least you would have a multi-use unlinkability, but still you have issuer linkability. Of course, security with the signatures is still there. What would have been better is to really use attribute-based credentials based on zero-knowledge proofs and proper signature schemes. Then you have true unlinkability, and actually efficient implementations of that do exist. However, these involve certain non-state approved cryptographic primitives. There are more advanced cryptographic primitives than typically approved by states, and the states and the European Commission really want to use state-approved cryptography. What is worse is that it's not implemented in current secure trusted hardware components, which means that device binding, which is an important security property, is hard to implement, because if the secure elements do not have the crypto, you cannot use the secure hardware to bind this to the device. It could be solved with some clever coding using traditional crypto while still using modern crypto ABCs, however. And we wrote extensively about this in comments to the European Commission as a group of cryptographers explaining how this could be done in a better way. Another privacy issue is the fact that there's a risk of over-authentication. Relying parties must register to use the identity wallet, and they get an access certificate that authenticates them to the wallet, so that it prevents unregistered relying parties to access information on the wallet. But once they have the certificate, they can ask about everything, whatever they want, because there's no enforcement of strict access rules. So the only thing that prevents this from happening is if users check the attribute requests and that they report relying parties over asking. This could have been solved in a different way by actually requiring issuers requiring relying parties to specify which attributes they need and to actually encode this in the access certificate. And finally, there's the whole issue of revocation. It should be possible to revoke attestations, but the way this is done is really by including a link to a revocation status server that is added by the issuer and that needs to be verified by the relying party. But that basically means that whenever a relying party checks the revocation status, a request is sent to this server, and if this server is hosted by the issuer, this really breaks issuer unlinkability. And the real problem here is that actually wallet revocation, which is mandated by the regulation, is actually a wallet instance attestation that is getting revoked, which means that whenever you use the wallet, the issuer of the wallet instance attestation gets to trace every time when and where the wallet is used. So we see that even though the regulation itself says a lot about how important privacy is, if you look at the current state of the architecture reference framework, there are still a lot of privacy issues, which is exactly the reason why a lot of member states are currently opposing the current draft of the architecture reference framework. The real problem here is that the architecture reference framework is a technical specification that really determines the real security and privacy properties, but that one is developed without much oversight or without a lot of academic and civil society participation. And actually, even the European Parliament didn't really get to see the architecture reference framework when voting on the regulation. And this is a problem with standardization in general. I'm apologies. Oh my God. Yeah, so there's builders build. So my point here is that regulating these things should be done in a different way. Arnold, I think you should take over the floor.
We hear the constructors working. You're going on for a while, so we want to switch.
Yeah, let's switch because this is too much noise, I think.
Okay. Let's thank you very much, and at least for this part, I will keep you in the camera view so you can.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Let's give it a applause. And then give the floor already to Bibi, getting her forward, and she's going to enlighten us on, well, customer privacy. That's, I think, a good terminology for this.
Yeah, sure. I didn't print my notes, so I'm here with my laptop. It might seem a little silly, but then, you know.
What does your sticker say?
It says, girl with a strong password.
Do you have more of them?
It's from IAPP. I'm certified with them as a privacy person, or whatever the title is. But I thought it was funny because it's the girl with the pearl earring. So yeah. Anyway, and then if I preach, I also need to practice, right? So it reminds me. Okay, so hi everybody. Good morning. Good to see you all here. I am Bibi van Alphen, and I'm with Freedom Internet, and I'm here to tell a little something about what we do at Freedom and why we do this, right? Yeah, it'll be just really short and sweet, I hope. And then maybe there's time for some questions, some remarks after, before the next speaker. So yeah, let's see here. I just push. Yeah, okay. So this is our logo. It's Freedom Internet. It's a Dutch ISP, so Internet Service Provider, access provider, in fact. So we provide our services to consumers. Yeah, internet connection to the home. And We are, I think, one of the smallest ISPs, but we have a large footprint because we deliver our services through almost all the networks in the Netherlands. So we can deliver our services almost everywhere in the country, which is nice. And we were created or founded by the community back in 2019, November 11th. So we just celebrated our 5th anniversary, which is exciting, as you can imagine. Yeah, and then, okay, so at Freedom we are mission-driven because, you know, we were created by the community and through crowdfunding. And our mission is to strive for a free and open internet, accessible for everyone. And we lobby and advocate for our fundamental rights here in The Hague, but also in Brussels. And this, mainly concerns privacy and freedom of internet traffic, so freedom of communication and speech. And we are, for example, involved in a couple of court cases. For example, we filed a complaint at the European Court of Justice that had to do with blocking orders. And then we also support a court case here in the Netherlands, which is, let's say, class action style court case against EdTech, because they are using or making a profit using our personal information through tracking cookies. So these are ways that we are, involved in this lobby and advocacy for our fundamental rights. And then now I will shortly touch upon how we put the principles privacy by design and privacy by default into practice. As you see here, this is the website where I had to fill out my details in order to get the ticket to be here, right, for this particular event. So it's a website by Eventbrite. I don't know if you're able to see it back there. A third party. I didn't read their privacy statement, by the way. To be honest, I don't know if you all did, but what mainly what I saw when I saw this firm, what I noticed was the fact that in the form they ask for whether you're a sir or a madam, and you have to fill it out. There's a red asterisk, so it's obligated to fill it out. And I was interested by this because, of course, well, I mean, for me personally, this is quite a limited choice, but also next to that, there's a question of, is this absolutely necessary in order to be here to join this event, for them to write down or to collect this data and store this data about me being either a sir or a madam. And then also I didn't have the choice, right, to leave it open or to pick something else maybe. So this, I mean, it's something that sounds reasonably simple to just collect the actual data that you actually need, but as these forms are oftentimes not something that you can change yourself, of course, you have to deal with the form that you have in front of you. But of course, as a company, maybe you can do something about it. So we try to do this by just collecting the data that we actually need. So when we ask for data from the customers or people that order our services, it's just a name, an address, because of course we need to know where to deliver our services and also where to send the installation person, for example, if a customer asks for this. And then also we have some information to contact them, like a mobile phone number and then an email address. And of course a bank account, because for the subscription we need to do the monthly collecting of money, right? So with this information, just the information that we actually need to deliver our services, we meet all the requirements, so both for conducting our business, but also legal requirements as a B2C, so consumer company, right? So this is basic data minimization and purpose limitation under the GDPR, so regulation for protecting our personal details. But I think also if you collect less data and you store less data, it's also wise in terms of security, both security and also now environment, right? So this was actually a slide. My friend is staying over with me. It's my friend from the US, and they wanted me to include this slide. So thank you, friend. Okay, so we are very mindful when it comes to collecting data about the financial situation of our customers, and also about collecting our debts. So we find the collection of personal financial data to be very intrusive with regard to privacy. And in general, we don't want to contribute to the debt industry and debt as a service, let's say, or debt as a business model. And I think this does require another way of thinking. It requires a way of trusting the person that you're dealing with, trusting your customer and the community instead of distrusting them, let's say. And I think this mantra throughout everything that we do really helps us also protect the privacy of our customers. Then another way that we protect our customers and their identity is through the sine nomine email address that we give them. So sine nomine is Latin, it means without a name. Therefore, this slide. Whenever a customer places an order in our order management system through our website, they also immediately make an account on our domain. So that's your nickname here at freedom.nl, right? Which you can also use as an email address, but it's also your login account. So immediately when they make this account, we also make this sine nomine email address, which is attached or linked to the actual email address that the customer chose, but it doesn't reveal any personal details, right? So for example, if a third party, so one of our partners, needs an email address for our customer, we give them the sine nomine email address so they can reach the customer, but they don't know their actual email address, which might, contain personal information. So the sine nomine email address has the format of like a hash code here at sinenomine.email, and it's available for every customer that has an account with us. And it's actually, I need to mention here our email partner, Sovereign, because they came up with this. So that's pretty nice. Yeah. So of course, next to the sine nomine email address, we also use unique identifiers, as most parties, of course, when we communicate about our customers with third parties, right? And then I even jokingly said one time in an article, I think, to our customers, with us, you are a number, haha, because we want to protect your identity. So sometimes we talk about you like you are a number, using that number, that unique identifier, let's say, or code, instead of your personal details. So, I mean, it's just, a way of protecting them, but it's also, sometimes it's nice to, I don't know, make a little joke or say something maybe provocative, I don't know, in order to, convey the message, of course. Okay, so these were a couple of examples of how we protect the identity of our customers, but we like to go a little bit further, and that's also why we are part of these lawsuits, for example, these court cases, and that's also why we lobby, right? But there was one moment where we were dealing with this particular number, which is the standard Dutch format for a mobile number, right? But without the country code, without the 0031. And we were wondering whether we had to consider this personal information. So we kind of did a little bit of research, and then we contacted the authority and also the telecom provider to ask if this particular number was attributed to a person, and they could confirm to us that it was not, because in fact it has been used and still is used as a fake number by almost everyone who needs to fill out a number, like a mobile format Dutch number. So it actually cannot be used in practice by a person. So it's not, in that sense, personal information. And I was just interested because it's also a number that you use that is like a placeholder or an example that you put in your web form, if you use a web form for filling out information and collecting information. And it's also in many libraries. So we were just researching this. Yeah, so in conclusion, it can still be used as a fake number. Not that I'm advising anything, but just to let you know. Yeah, this was just a little something that I wanted to tell you about what we do. Of course, there's more. If you're interested, this is our website. You can visit it. We don't use intrusive data analytics or third-party tracking cookies, so you're very welcome. And yeah, I think if there's any questions now, feel free to ask them, or remarks. And also, I will be here, so just come up to me if you have any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bibi. Any questions, remarks? Yeah.
Yes, I have a question about, I mean, you don't store much data, so... Maybe you don't want to answer it, but if you still do, feel free. Who is your average customer? Because we see that with different products that are like Telegram, for example, that usually channels that seem to be more sensitive about privacy and data security issues that we should all be more sensitive about, attract a certain group of people that makes it feel as if, okay, these services are only used by people who deny COVID and who voted for Trump. You know what I mean? So there's always that at least in the European or Western discussion, and it has always this element of not being scalable to the general public, but of still being a very niche issue.
Our thing is, yeah, it's marketing as well, but no, it's a principle. We don't know who our customers are, of course, because we don't see what they are using their internet connection for. We are not. We are, you know. We can do it because there's a law, right? But also it's a matter of principle. But what we do know, because we do, since we were founded by a community, a certain community, we kind of know who is interested, of course, and we do get a lot of emails from people who are very interested every day in our service. And it is a certain group of people, you can say. I mean, we actually. There was an action movement, and it was Access for All Must Stay. And Access for All is one of the first consumer internet providers in the Netherlands. So there was this community already there, and that's also the community that is interested in our services. But next to this, next to the fact that one could say that we are interesting for maybe, I don't know, techies or privacy nerds or whatever, it's also difficult. I would never tell someone to actually start up an ISP in this market or in this time, but we did it anyway because we're stubborn. But it's also a matter of what your place is in the market, right? Like we are more expensive, for example. So then you also know that it's a certain kind of people that can pay for your services, right? So this is also another thing that we know about our customers until we are able to lower our prices, which of course is our goal, because we don't need the profit. We only need to exist as a company, right? But just 5 years, so getting there. Yeah, I think also because we don't have funds for marketing, we are still growing, and every day there's someone who's a new customer with Freedom Internet, which always baffles me because I'm like, who now is ordering our services? That's so weird to me, but it's also very cool. But it's still like, how do you say that? Word to mouth, or right? It's hearsay, kind of, let's say, instead of big marketing campaigns, because we don't have the funds simply. So it's also like still that part of the community, and then, you know, it's a little bit more every day. But so yeah, it does concern a certain group of people, I would say. Yeah, if that answers your question.
To be honest, I'm a customer and I'm not a criminal and not denying COVID. But I can pay for the license. But I was happy that they lowered the price once the network provider lowered the price for being able to deliver the service.
Yeah, but we need to raise our prices in the new year. Sorry.
Yeah, I've read it. Yeah.
But we tried to do it like €1. And
but I understand the question, of course. Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
Because once you access a bigger market, and I mean the market will be bigger eventually by having discussions around GDPR, etc. So it's more of a like common societal issue, and it gets like.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the hacker in the hoodie in the cellar,
no.
But it's like the average person being worried about their data privacy or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you can still have that sense of community, and you don't really need big marketing, right? Because
No.
it would defeat your image, kind of, and to make it cynical, the community could be all-encompassing and very broad, and still selling that community idea. Understanding.
Yeah.
Other questions for now, perhaps?
I have a question regarding your pseudonymization and all of that stuff. When you give a pseudonymized email, and of course it will be somehow linked to an individual using your platform, I have a question. How far are you willing to go with pseudonymization? For example, are you thinking on expanding in the financial, like disposable bank numbers and stuff like that? And in some cases, for example, when you register for certain businesses, you have to give them your information per se, or else it would be considered fraud. And how do you go around that, or how have you handled that?
Yeah. So at this point in time, I mean, in the future, it might be different, but we only offer our services to consumers. So there's no know your customer, like when you're handling with like a business to business, right? Or like a hoster. We're also not a hoster, so it's a little different. But there's an obligation, legal obligation to every 24 hours give our whole administration about our users' IP address name to the government, right? So, I mean, we're not above the law. We do everything that is required, but we will resist if necessary. And I think oftentimes it's necessary to resist. But of course, we will do as we are obliged. And then I think with everything we do, we try to look at how far we can go, or what we can do, or what might be a novelty, but worth our while, right? Because we have this certain position as well, where I think our community expects us to be critical. So we like to do so, also because it's in our DNA, all of us actually. But you have to meet, as I was saying before, for example, if you talk about the financial situation, right? I mean, we do need to get paid because we need to be able to provide our services and pay ourselves, I don't know, right? And the third parties that we work with, our partners. But also, I feel there's different ways. Oftentimes it seems like there's only black and white, or 1 or 0, right? When either you collect all the data and you use it almost maybe against someone, or it's like a free-for-all. But I think that there's there's nuance, and there's more options there. You just need to kind of research it and try to think a little different. And then I think there's many options that you can use. But I don't know. I don't know if this answers your question, but It's just, it requires a little bit more time and more discussion also internally inside of our company every time that we do something new, let's say. So it just takes a little time. Yeah, okay.
Okay, great. Say thanks so much, Bibi. Yeah. And then I'm going to give the floor to Kristina.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kristina Lillieneke, and I am a lawyer specializing in blockchain and digital assets and things like that. Ooh.
No worries, it's the test of the alarm system.
Oh, is it? I thought it was mine. I thought they had some danger warning out for me or something here in my lecture. Yeah, so I have, so my background is that I've also been in the expert panel for the EU Commission's organization that they set up for blockchain. It's called Blockchain Observatory and Forum, and they had an expert panel where I was part of, and that made me interested in eIDAS a very long time ago, actually, because I've held lectures on it before. It was even fashionable to talk about it. And actually, when I read through the legislation, I was quite horrified. So that was when I started taking an interest in learning more. So today, I'm going to be talking about the dangers of the digital IDs, which I think are not addressed at all appropriately. We're just talking about the dangers of not having this dystopian tech in place soon enough. We're never talking about the implications for us as citizens and our freedoms and rights. So that's what I'm going to be highlighting. Of course, there's like a million aspects and a million details you can talk about this, and that's not enough with a short little lecture like this for 15-20 minutes. But it's at least to try to get people start thinking along the lines there, because I think it's an important subject to be debated, not only within digital ID settings, but as society as a whole, actually, I would say. So I try to do what I can. And speaking of your, who goes to Telegram and all of that, I can tell you that I used to be very vocal on LinkedIn with this, and I've debated some of the people on here. And right now I am banned from LinkedIn because I wrote that standing up for the boxer in the Olympics that had XY chromosomes and won the boxing thing there, I commented that that was not standing up for women, and that I stand up for women and girls' rights in sports, and that had me banned off of LinkedIn.
Editorial note: Iman Khalif was disqualified by the IBA in 2023 after beating the Russian boxer Azelia Ameneva. The IBA claimed Khalif has XY chromosomes, but never disclosed any proof. The IOC cleared Khalif for the Olympics, stating she was born as a female, registered as a female, raised as a female, and lived as a female. This led to heated online debate during the Olympics.
And my thousands of followers, so, stuff like that happens a lot, among other things to me, especially if you're outspoken, I should say. And so why is this important then? Because it impacts society as a whole, what we do and what we don't do, and our individual well-being and societal flourishment. One of the reasons why, the Western societies are more, like flourishing than the more controlled ones, if you compare it to North Korea or China or Cuba for that matter. They have no personal freedoms there. They have not the ability to try things out and fail, or try things out and succeed as we have. So for a flourishing society, actually freedoms are important. And a lot of the developments, especially within the EU, I would say, goes against even the foundational pillars within the EU with the human rights and freedoms that are issued on there, but I'm going to get back to that. But this is why it's an important subject. And so as we could hear also this morning, the EIDAS in particular and all the other government IDs, they are not decentralized at all. They are on private and permissioned blockchains. And some people don't know the difference between a private and a decentralized blockchain. And a private one means that no one that is not allowed by the government is able to either access it or review what goes on there, which means that they have like a firewall where no one can check what the government is actually doing. So it's all secretive. And permissioned also means that you can be blocked from accessing, like say you're a company that wants to access that the government doesn't like, they can say, sorry, you can't participate in our system because we don't like you. It also centralizes authority. It's only, like in the end, it's the commission that decides what goes and no one else has any influence or say on it. They are, as you could hear from Jaap-Henk and a lot of other people, actually the EIDAS and the digital infrastructure is enabling surveillance, and then you know that governments around the world already now use surveillance tech and predictive policing and things like that when they integrate CCTV systems and things like that with facial recognition, and then you can tie that in with someone's digital identity, kind of like they do in China already with their social credit system. Another problem, I think, are the PPPs, which is the public-private partnerships. That means that it's commercial companies, usually big tech companies, or those ultra-wealthy individuals that are participating in this, and not only big tech, but also big weapons manufacturers. In two of the EIDAS projects, as you can hear, there are 4 of them now. In 2 of them, the French company Thales, or Thales, or however you pronounce it, it's French, it's a military company that develops a lot of weaponry and AI weaponry as well. And they have a short little, or a small little part of their main business is the military business, but they also have identities as a part of their company. And they are providing the digital driver's license and all of that, like in the US and Finland and a few other countries, I mean. They are involved in the development of the digital IDs as well. And then they want to use like facial recognition to open up your ID. And the same company is developing AI weaponry or autonomous AI weaponry that works remotely using facial recognition. So it can come a drone and looking for Kristina, and when they find me, they shoot just me. And then I think that feels a little bit like I don't want to maybe give my face to a company like that, even though they say they keep it separate, but that I personally don't trust at all. They also say it's voluntary, but that's like voluntary like that. It's voluntary until it isn't. And I know that Bank ID is here today speaking, and in Sweden we are huge on Bank ID. We have had that for a very long time, which is like the pre-step to digital ID. And there you cannot access any government services without using the Bank ID, so then it's not really voluntary. And then it's like a creep of where you are required to use it. Like I have my internet provider to my personal home. If I want to call customer services there, even if they don't know what I want to ask, I maybe just want to ask, why is my internet down today? But then before they even transfer me to the person that I can ask my question to, I have to identify myself with a Bank ID to even be transferred. And I see a danger of that happening with these digital IDs as well, that you cannot do anything without using them. There's also a push for tokenization of all assets, and I guess that's why they want the wallets with it, because that increases the risk of all of these things. Because in the wallet you're going to have your driver's license, your ID, your credentials, your money, your individual carbon credits, and so on and so forth in this wallet, where the government have direct access to that. And like I said, they already use predictive technologies to see like who might be a criminal and so on and so forth. And they can control transactions, and like I said, when it's private, it's also the access, who gets to join the club, so to speak. So what data do these apps collect already now? So it's body-centric data that can be public health records, and that's one aim of the wallets, to keep that on there, and also like vaccine passports and things like that, whatever might come in the future. Also your biometrics, that is everything from, like I said, your facial recognition to your heartbeat, to your voice, and all of those things that can be tied to you as an individual. Also your browser history, what are you searching for, what are you buying, all of those things, what you write on social media. So for instance, if you do like Trump, then maybe that's like a bad thing on your record that you're not supposed to do. And I'm just using you as an example now. And then also geolocation, also in real time, like where are you traveling, who are you talking to, what are your daily routes, and also what transactions are you doing. And based on all this, there's probably a lot more, but these are some examples. And based on all of that data that they collect, they make inferences on your intelligence, your sexual orientation, political views, health, all of those things. And actually, since they compared these digital IDs with vehicles before and talked about autonomous vehicles, I have actually worked, before I started in blockchain, I've worked almost all my career within the automotive industry. So I have done also studies on AI in those autonomous vehicles and all of that. And already now, if you have a connected vehicle, the vehicles are collecting all of this data for you. It's uploaded to an Israeli company, all OEMs within automotive are uploading all the raw data into a cloud for an Israeli company that then packages it and sells it and shares the profit with the OEMs. So actually all of this surveillance is already going on within your car if you have one of those. And they are also, collecting all of this and making all of the inferences there.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
You keep referring to they. Is that who are they?
Who are they? They are the ones that control the technology that collects it. So in the case of cars, it's the OEMs and their cooperation partners. Like within a modern vehicle, it's like 70 to 80, devices within the car that tracks personal data. If we're talking about a digital identity, I'm talking about whoever controls that, which could be the European Union, or it could be Google, or it could be whomever, right? Or Thales, if they are the hosts of the wallet. So they could be any number of people, but the person controlling the technology, I would say.
Or whoever is willing to pay for it.
Yeah, that too.
Or whoever is willing to hack it. So it's all like once it's in one.
Yeah, exactly. So all of this, here are some key risks that all of this data collection, because data is also the new oil. Everyone wants the data. Google is making like a few $100 billion per year on data sales. and that's just one company. So, you know, all of the data that they take from us as individuals are then, you know, their base for profit. So yeah. But anyhow, these are the risks when it comes to digital identity then. Increased surveillance, loss of privacy, and actually anonymity is one of those things, like being able to be anonymous and express your views, buy whatever you want, interact with whomever you want, is a feeling like, you know, that you feel secure in developing yourself as a person. If you feel monitored and that everyone is listening in and judging what you're saying and all of that, then people are going to self-censor and not, you know, explore the free world and grow and find new solutions and innovations and all of that. So it's very stifling, both on a personal but as a society, at a society level as well, I would say. Discrimination and exclusion can be everything from being illiterate in tech stuff, but also, you know, on political views, or, for instance, me then, that got banned off of LinkedIn because I think men should not compete in women's sports. That's not a popular view from the American tech companies. So because of that, then I'm unpersoned because I have an unacceptable view in their well, in their minds then, which I think it's not hateful to stand up for women and girls' rights for my daughter who's in sports, for instance. But I guess that's up for debate. Abuse of power is what I said. You have the ability to exclude people. Erosion of rights. It can be religious, bodily autonomy. It can be speech and opinion, and also the lack of transparency is built into centralized systems where, you know, on the private permission blockchains then. All of these things, central bank digital currencies and smart cities, I think exacerbate this problem actually, and I think that these aspects of it all is why there's wallets involved with the identities. So it's not primarily for identification, it's primarily to have somewhere to store your digital currencies and all the credentials that the government require us to have. And to be able to do that, we need wallets. And we usually don't talk about CBDCs when it comes to digital IDs, but like I said, this is the primary reason why we have wallets. Why I don't like CBDCs are because it's a two-tiered money system where wholesale CBDCs will be used by central banks, financial institutions, and the really wealthy ones. And then I mean like Bill Gates type of wealthy persons. And they are going to have their own system for how they can transact with large value payments. And it's central bank liability and settlement it's used for, and also for tokenization of assets. There's a big push going on to tokenize nature, for instance, to make that into a financial tradable instrument. In South America, they're doing that a lot. And it's pushed by the same people that push for digital IDs and have done that for a very long time through the UN and the World Economic Forum and there are some also NGOs like ID 2020 that have been working since 2017 to have digital IDs, and they came in when it was the vaccine passports and we're ready to go, and so that's how it all basically started there. For us other worldly or deadly people, we get to use the retail CBDC, which is then the lower level, which is a separate monetary system. The problem I have with it is that it's also running on a blockchain, so it's governed by algorithms, so it's programmable, meaning that the government decides who gets to trade, with whom, and when. So it's basically only your imagination that limits what you can do. Like say, there's a big push now that beef and cows are bad for the environment. So then you can do an algorithm that makes you not be able to buy beef or buy a certain amount of beef per month or so on and so forth. You can also do geolocation fencing, so the money only works within a certain area. And that's what's going to be used in smart cities then, that you can only be in your part of the town, and outside of it your money won't work. Or it could be to stimulate the economy. They can set a date or an expiry date for the money. So if you haven't spent it within that expiry date, it burns and you don't have it anymore. So smart cities also will use both the digital identities and the money, and that's now called C40 cities. All the major cities in the US and Europe are in this. It's not even on state level, it's on the governance in the city councils that join the C40 initiative. And they're talking about all these things, how you can limit how you travel, how you purchase things, everything from food to clothing. And there it's also, you have to ask permission to go outside of your area if you do that too often in a year.
Editorial note. She refers to a paper co-written by C40 with far-reaching suggestions to radically cut CO2 emissions in cities. The initiative aims to make cities greener and healthier while committing to less waste, less pollution, and less CO2 production. It has no jurisdiction and none of their suggestions are mandatory. On www.c40.org, you can find more information on this initiative.
There's also a big push on personal carbon allowances that every individual get then, like you could say, your personal carbon credits, and you get a certain number of those in a year or a month or whatever, however they set it up. And then when they're done, you also cannot purchase anything because there are already technologies that do that. Like if you swipe your card and you pay something, and I buy an avocado from South America, then that's going to have a higher carbon footprint than if I buy a turnip from my neighboring farm in Sweden. So that's going to be cheaper in the sense of the carbon footprint. So technology like that is already actually developed by a Swedish company that I've worked together with some banks to develop this. And then you can put a voluntary limit for how much you want to release carbon in a month. And then when you have reached your limit, you can't buy anything else. So for now it's voluntary, but it's only voluntary till it's not, like I said. So these things, I think, are actually what makes the wallet even more dangerous. And to give some examples, if the governments are trustworthy or not, because I hear a lot of people that are saying like, oh, it's a given that you can trust the government with everything like this, right? So I'm going to talk about the DIA app in Israel, and then also a little bit about the EU. So the DIA, the Everything app, DIA is short for the State and I in Ukraine. They have started this, and they have collaborated in a public-private partnership with BlackRock, JP Morgan, and Google to create this app that has about 70 applications. So everything, it started off being used when people were fleeing the war. They had to show this ID to get social welfare.
Editorial note. DIA was first presented in 2019 and launched in 2020. When Russia invaded in February 2022, DIA had already over 15 million users. DIA was developed with funding from USAID, UK, Switzerland, the Eurasian Foundation, Visa, and Google.
But now it has like expanded, so almost every government thing is on there. You even register your child when it's born through the app, strangely enough. So they also, the latest feature is the e-enemy, where private citizens can report Russian troops, for instance, which is problematic from the war law perspective, because that is counted as actively participating in a war. So if I say, oh, look, there are some Russians, first of all, I mean, how do you verify that it actually is? But also under war laws, then I count as a participant or as a weapon in the war, and then I'm no longer counted as a civilian that's protected on, to not be attacked, because you're doing that. So it's not so easy to do all of this, but it has already leaked out a lot. There have been some big hacks, and also the Ukrainian authorities have sold a lot of data, and they have also allowed themselves to integrate several of the systems to make inferences about the different citizens. So many systems, they have given themselves right to review and add together all the data about all the individuals there. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment also on your previous slide. I'm very happy to see the link now on digital identities and CBDC. I mean, so I haven't heard it still this morning, so I'm very happy. And about wallets and actually the ECB just today, a few minutes ago, published a report a progress report on the CBDC. And the topic of digital identity keeps on, in this context of CBDC, keeps on being not in the front. It's not the best. Although it would be the main enabler to be able to
yes,
actually
exactly.
have a CBDC. I find it very interesting when you mention about the wallets, but I feel that many of these things already happen in the real world. The only thing is that who is the excluded and who is not. So at the end, for payment purposes,
I think digital identity, it covers so many parts of the society, of what we do as a society, and that is maybe also, I find it useful, at least to follow the conversation, to focus on use cases. And I am a former policymaker from the Dutch Central Bank and the European Central Bank, so I've been focused on payments services, on everything that is behind. And I've been working on the EID dossier for some time already. I find it, in the public discussions, at least from the central bank's perspective, it has been always a little bit not the priority number one. Priority number one has been in the discussion of CBDC, digital euro, but digital identity is key. Otherwise, you don't have anything online to be able. For payments specifically, and as you mentioned at the end, what I find I try to focus it on use cases. I say, what do we want with payments? We want to be able at least to pay. Sweden is actually very advanced in terms of payments, the same as the Netherlands, but in terms of online payments. At the end, what we want is that you are a real person, and you have money in your bank account to buy the shoes that you say you want to buy, let's say, for example, on a website. That's the purpose, whether...
Yeah, I mean, we already have digital payments.
Yeah, but
so when the EU Commission or the ECB comes and say, oh, it's going to be so convenient because you can pay for stuff online, then you're like, yeah, well, I already do that.
Of course, if we use the fear, as you mentioned, right, that, for example, public identity device like a passport or as license would be used within a Google Wallet or Apple Wallet, and the fear of that, and the whole idea of how, let's say, at least from the central bank perspective, the announcement of Facebook Lira was the one that shook the floor to all policymakers of what could happen, because they have a real potential power to control at the end.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I would say that all of this is driven by actually the banking sector. It's been pushed by the BIS for a long time, but like you said, they really started when Libra and all of that came, and now they're scared of Bitcoin and other cryptos that they're going to become irrelevant, the banking sector.
It's handy. I wish, like, the government, is a big word. Like, I think it's about trust, and many studies have showed that when there's lack of trust in the government or in their institutions, then people use less their, for example, money. It's about monetary policy at the end. The whole idea, at least from the CBDC perspective, is to be able to actually influence and have control on monetary policy. Cash usage was going down. Like in the Netherlands now, it's like less than 30%, 24% of payments are done at the counter are done on cash. In Sweden, that's a very, very little as well compared to other countries. For example, in Germany, I have been doing research on the use of money. In Germany and Austria, because there is a lot, cash usage is quite high compared to the other European countries. And this is also because there's a habit of hoarding a lot of money. That's the most difficult to do research on how much Germans hoard a lot of money. And central bank, Germans who also work in central banks, and they also hoard a lot of money because they I have been in discussions on.
But that means, that's an interesting choice of word. Hoard money, isn't that called saving?
Yeah, but it's called saving, but it also means that you do not trust the bank to put your money there, and also you like to
give them as a reason to trust them. They keep doing.
Yeah, I mean, when you're creating the retail CBDC, then you don't own your money at all. You don't control it. It's just.
But right now also you don't control it that much because I mean the whole idea of having CBDC
than you will do when it's programmed.
There could be a run bank, like because there's no commercial banks at the end. It's the commercial money from banks. Like I have my money in ABN AMRO, ING, or Rabobank, etc. How quick would the government be able to control in case of a crisis? And I think. Yeah, maybe it serves to me at least to. I think, for example, I think there's a lot of uncertainty or distrust, and it's necessary to provide services to all the citizens within their characteristics, despite of what type of use. Like also now with the polarization, now whether you're a Trump supporter or not, or whether you believe in this. Sometimes it's dangerous because we go into classifying who's a little bit us against them at the end as institutions.
Yeah, so let me continue with this then, because what I want to say then, that all of the US, all of the EU and the whole Western world, I think Australia and New Zealand are even in on it. We're sending all of our money to Ukraine at the moment. And some people like it, some people don't. Yeah. But then you should know, because we're saving democracy there, but they're using the app, weaponizing it against anyone that the government doesn't like. They are also, Zelensky's term is up since a long time. He's still there. He canceled the elections.
Editorial note: the Ukrainian constitution suspends all elections during wartime. Zelensky did not cancel elections. Putin started the war that suspended the elections. When Churchill was fighting Nazi Germany during World War II, UK elections were also suspended for the duration of the war.
They are banning a lot of newspapers, all of the ones that have criticized Zelensky. They have banned the Orthodox Church and thrown the priests from it's Russian Orthodox Church. They've thrown them in jail and all of that. And to me, that is not democracy.
Editorial note: the Russian Orthodox Church is not neutral. The Patriarch is a Putin ally, and the Russian Orthodox Church spreads Russian propaganda as the religious branch of the Kremlin. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church detached itself from Russian influence after the invasion in 2014.
And they're weaponizing this setup, but also at the same time, everyone loves the Ukraine setup. The American minister, whatever his official title is, that's doing all of this, he's saying that all the world should use the DIA setup. Estonia has already bought it, and a few other countries and starting to develop on that thing. In Israel, they're also using digital identities, and they're using AI, machine learning, and predictive policing there too, to see who are the targets. They assign ratings to people through that lavender thing there to see, oh, might you be a terrorist or whatever. And also one with a strange name, Where's Daddy? And that's like a geolocation of where targets are at. And now they're using US companies to create gated communities. And these US companies have already done that in like Syria and Afghanistan and all of that, where you have to show, and this is actually in cooperation with the UN, where you have to show your biometrics to receive food and help within that geolocation area then. And then lastly, I would like to say then, because now I'm running out of time, is here in the EU, is the Commission actually out to just help all the citizens and do a super duper thing? Then I think you have to look at the bigger picture. What else are they doing? Well, they're doing chat control. That was a piece of legislation that was voted down. It was from a Swedish commissioner called Ylva Johansson. That is to save us from all pedophiles that are looking for child pornography, they're saying. But it involves listening into all of your phone conversations, reading all your text messages, reading all your emails, all types of electronic communication, even when you talk on the phone. 24/7, the Commission wants to spy on every citizen. It's not based on suspicion, it's based on you existing. So this is ongoing. The Parliament voted it down, but the Commission won't give up, so now they're doing it all over again to try to get it to pass. The Digital Services Act has some good features to it, but that actually turns the Commission into the one true entity to determine what is true and what is hate. Because the Commission gets to decide what is disinformation and what is hate speech. And they don't have to prove that something is misinformation, they can just label it. And if I get censored for misinformation, there's nowhere I can turn to and say, hey, the Commission mistreated me. There's no place you can go to get help from that. Also, they're doing within the EIDAS framework, they're putting in requirements so that all websites have to register so that they can track every website that you're on through this ID wallet thing. And they're also building up the C40 cities that are built on surveillance and tracking and control. So I'm going to do my last thing here then. So what I think we should do, if we're going to have a thriving society, is just to reject all of this. We should empower individuals, and we should create tech, and that's where my passion is, where individuals get to own themselves and their data, even whether it's in the physical or the digital world. We have to limit how the corporate, interest. GDPR is not a protection legislation for us. It just says how corporations can use our data to make a profit. And so we need to go with decentralization solutions. I don't think SSI is a thing of the past. I think that's something that's going to come stronger. The challenge there is that that's not where the big money is. The big money is for track and trace and control and making the big bucks, right? And we actually need privacy laws that protects people, because GDPR does not. So yeah, I'll end it with that. We need a free society where we all can grow and develop. And that's me.
Yes, thanks so much. Thanks everyone. We had some questions already. I'll give the floor for one short question because lunch is ready for us and I don't want to keep people away from lunch too long. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. Just a little side note on that as well. I think you don't necessarily have to protect people, but people need to be willing to protect their privacy, right? And I think in many cases, they are just not, they don't care. People are rather use a solution that is easily accessible than using the one that is most secure, and you need user friendliness.
I don't agree, actually. I think most people don't know.
Well, I think many people know, and I think it's similar with choosing to eat food that is good for you and then food that is convenient. But that's another story. And I'm German, so don't get me wrong. But if you, I want to break lance a bit for military because you mixed it. It seemed as as if to you that part of military innovation was something new. But it's really not, because most of the innovation that we see throughout humanity comes from dual use, right? It can be the internet, it can be blood transfusions, it can be GPS. So there's a huge variety in that, right? So it's not unique to that specific setting, just saying that aside. But yeah, so thanks for that review, but I just don't think there's as much black and white and many shades of gray in between.
But so then I want to reply to that, because I always hear people don't care, people don't care. I think if people understood the implications of all of this, they would care. But unfortunately, like I said, there's no public discussion about this. There's very low understanding, and that's why, you know, people don't oppose to it.
And no transparency. And no transparency. So
no transparency, no.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to say about it, but it's getting towards a broader discussion, which is very nice. In particular, if you combine this with something to drink or to eat. So please go ahead during lunch. I thank you very much for all the attendance at the session.